Appreciate it. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, shouldn't be anybody standing. There are seats open over there. There are seats here. Take your time. Come on, move down in front. Somebody, anybody, somebody wave. There are plenty of seats here. I really appreciate everybody coming here today. I think this is going to be a great program. I think we're going to do this going forward for the next few years, but your comments will drive that. So I know how crazy that app is, but please try and get into it at least once today and let us know what worked, what didn't work, because I think this is a very valuable opportunity to learn from a lot of people. That's me, that's who I am, that's more information than my family even cares to know about me. Should you want to know anything, just type my name into any browser like you see on the bottom, danto.info, and you can read articles and get in touch with me and do whatever you'd like to do. Okay. So I'm here talking about a lot of topics in a very short period of time. Unified communication, video conferencing, huddle rooms. We all know, I assume everybody has been in this field for a long period of time, so I'm going to treat you guys like you're informed and you know what's going on. But we used to be in an era where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago and more, large entities, large corporations drove what was going on in technology. The companies would buy flat panels even recently, and then that's the flat panels moved into people's houses, and that's kind of how it worked. And then, 5, 10 years ago, we went into this trend of consumerization, where it completely reversed. Instead of enterprises picking the technology and driving them into the consumer, we now have consumers picking the technology and driving it into the enterprise. That's the concept of consumerization. That's why you're all using Apple products and iPhone products in your enterprise now, because so many people had them that enterprises had to capitulate. And that's where the direction went. We're now moving even further past that to something that I refer to as democratization. And we're in an era now of democratization where experience trumps technology. And we're all the bad guys. No mistake about it, we're the technologists. We're the guy that can go into a conference room and use the Crestron touch panel to make it work, or get into the video conference room and make the video call. We've been building rooms for us for years, not for everybody else. And everybody else couldn't care less. Because now, in the past we used to give them technology and say, this is what you get, if you don't like it, leave. Now we say, this is what you get, take it or leave it. They say, okay, bye, and they take out their smart app and they do whatever they want to do anyway. They have more access to technology than we do. So it's not about what we think is good anymore, it's about what the experience, what they think is good, what the users think is good. We have to stop picking what we think is the best technology. We were talking before, somebody made a comment about, did you do a shootout? Shootouts are irrelevant. What we think is the best technology is irrelevant. What's relevant is what do the users think is the best experience. That's the only way we're going to succeed going forward. All the processes that we've used in the unified communication space to compare products and compare solutions and deal with suites of technology, all of it can be flushed. It doesn't make a difference. We put together these big hunking spreadsheets and compare vendor A and vendor B and vendor C. And here's the feature is better in A than B, but the cost is better, but the licensing is different, but the admin process is different. It's all a total waste of time. As soon as somebody takes out a phone and loads up FaceTime or whatever chat equivalent there is, tomorrow, it doesn't matter what we thought was best. They're working on the experience they think is best. I'm putting in a lot of facilities, and I'm working with a lot of organizations that still work with core Cisco and core Microsoft products, and a few of them that work with both of them together. But it doesn't matter what we think is best anymore. If it's not the experience that the end users want, they're not going to use what we give them. They're going to use whatever they want to use. Now, while all that was happening, a very different thing happened in our space, in the video conferencing and collaboration and even AV space. The prices, the floor fell out. I can remember my days in financial services where we put in a telepresence room that cost $500,000 without joking, and then to remediate the room, it cost another $500,000. And that's not just a blind exaggeration. That was our building in Tokyo. You have to do everything after hours with additional air conditioning, $1 million to put in a video conference room. That bubble burst around 2009, 2010. If you're reading IMCCA articles, you would have been prepared for it. We predicted it. A couple of years ago, you had a lot of the one-piece systems that Hope was talking about come out, where you take a nice video conferencing system that's using speaker tracking, video camera technology, and you drop it in a room, and instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, 40 grand, 50 grand, you've got a nice high-quality system that operates and looks like an immersive video conference system. Now, you can get a really damn good video conferencing system for about $1,000. And from the bigger players, 5,000, 6,000, 10,000. And in fact, they don't even want to sell it to you anymore. They'd rather you buy it on an annuity basis. All of this is going on When you would have a manufacturer or an AV integrator, one of the integrators working in this room, come in to your facility as an end user and say, hey, let's help you with the design, let's bring in our people, let's work you through this. What do you think paid for that? It was the margins on this gear that paid for that expertise. Those margins are gone. Those people aren't available to help the end users anymore unless they pay for them, and end users don't want to pay for them. So this is a complete change in the direction of where our industry is going. Those of you that are making your money on profit margins on selling of hardware should start looking for another career. It's not going to be around much longer because everybody's moving to a different space. They're moving to this concept of the platform, not the equipment. And I'm listing 3 manufacturers up there, but I could have put 100, it doesn't really matter. WebEx, Cisco doesn't want to sell you immersive systems anymore. Cisco wants to sell you immersive systems, of course they do, but that's not really their goal. Their goal is to sell you licenses so that your entire enterprise will get onto their platform. Cisco WebEx, Cisco Spark, everything that they're doing. Google is the same way. Google's got some products that are out there, but their suite is the G Suite. They want you on their platform. Microsoft the same, Office 365 in the cloud, or if you're talking Teams, or if you're talking Skype for Business, what they want is they want to go into an enterprise, and they want to say, I want every user to be paying me $5, $10, $15, $20, $50, $100 per month for the next 3 years. Their entire businesses around the collaboration space are now geared to getting you onto their platform, onto this annuity model, because they realize there's no more money left in selling commodity hardware when you can go down and get a nice camera system for $1,000. Everything you see coming from these large players in the space, everything, even if it looks like a product, is strictly a method to get you onto their platforms going forward. Everything. Looking at the way cloud was, when in 1994 Wired magazine took distributed computing and called it cloud, everybody laughed and said, sure, future, maybe, nothing I'm really interested in. When you started getting some cloud and collaboration, either private clouds or Blue Jeans when they came out in 2009, yeah, it had a few users, it was interesting. Nobody's going to use cloud, it's not protected, not safe, all the data's out there, you can't control it. 2017, look at the names just in that bubble. I made it a small bubble, I could put more names in there too. Everybody is using cloud. Everybody, take a quick look at that last cloud, that last bubble up there. Raise your hands if you're using one of those products. Everybody look around the room, keep your hands up. That's how many people are on cloud today, if you don't believe that that's where we are. So all the fear and everything else has completely moved off. Everybody realizes you're in cloud for collaboration on that annuity model, you need to get the contracts. And then what you see are these devices which could be described as whiteboards or interactive displays or whatever else you want to call them. And instead of looking at them as the hardware, look at them as to what I described 2 slides ago. SparkBoard, is it a nice board? Is it a good system? Yeah, I've used it. It's got some good points. It's got some bad points. You can't use it unless you're on Cisco Spark, unless you're paying the Spark WebEx licenses. It's a boat anchor, unless you've got that connection. G Suite, Google has the Jamboard out. Jamboard's a nice product. You can't use it unless you're a G Suite user. Microsoft Surface Hub. Surface Hub's a nice product. It has some flaws. It has some interesting things. It really has no value to you unless you're on the Microsoft platform. So everything these organizations are doing isn't about the hardware. It's about getting you into their platforms. Let's talk about what's going on in rooms for a second. As Hope is describing to you, we now have scalable deployments. Scalable deployments are very, very good. When you talk about, in an AV world, and everybody, those of you who know me, my background is AV. I'm working in an IT space right now, so I'm sort of like Spock. I'm in neither world, in both of them. We used to talk about a big AV job. What's a big AV job? I'm putting up a building in London. I did that for a number of the financial services companies. It's a building. It's, 20 video conference rooms and maybe 50 other rooms. That's big, right? That's a big AV job. That's nearly 100 rooms. Big in the IT world is in the tens of thousands or in the hundreds of thousands. We're talking about a different level of scale. So when something like WeCry comes out, the malware that was out a couple of weeks ago, and you sit there and you look at your AV integrated room and you look at a control system and a PC and a display and video switching capabilities, and audio DSPs. And every one of them has some type of processor in it and some type of embedded operating system in it, and you don't know if you're vulnerable. And since every room is not done the same way, you don't know which rooms are vulnerable. You're looking at a disaster. If you put in one of these boxes, and I'm showing the Cisco ones up here right now, but it can be anybody's. You put in one of these solid state systems, that MX700 that I'm showing there, you drop that into 10,000 conference rooms identically, globally. All you need is a plug, power, network connectivity, and you're done. And when WeCry comes out, or the next malware comes out, one patch over the weekend, distribute, done, all your systems are updated. Staging, think about how ridiculous the concept for AV staging is. Staging is you putting all of the equipment that you've planned together in a room at one time with the programmer in the hopes that it's actually going to work the way it's supposed to. We've got to get past that. We've got to get to this concept of scale. And as one of the questions asked before, we've got voice control emerging. People are going to walk up to these systems and say, hey, start my meeting. Harman's working on that with IBM Watson. Crestron had an announcement with Alexa. Although I don't know if I want to have a live cloud always recording microphone in my room, but voice control is coming. People don't like that. So programming, staging, troubleshooting, these are things we're not going to be doing anymore. We're not going to be making money at them. We're going to be making money in the services, in the design, and the distribution of these systems. Huddle room, also as Hope was pointing out, is the next concept in that. The concept of a huddle room is that the reality of meetings is we don't have 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 people in meeting rooms anymore. We now have 2 or 3 people, or 4, and they're connected to distributed offices, so they're more connected remotely than they are locally. Sometimes they're rooms, sometimes they're spaces, but it's very hot. It is the buzzword of the show this year, huddle rooms. There are a lot of form factors emerging, and there are a lot of pluses and minuses with all the form factors. One of the key points is, since the physics of the camera is closer to the screen, and the people are closer to the screen, if it's a standard video conferencing camera, you're not going to see the people sitting to the side of the screen, because they're closer to it. So the first thing that people say, we need a wider angle camera. A lot of people are coming out with super wide angle cameras, with 180 degree stitch cameras, with cameras that have the ability to take that fisheye lens and electronically stitch out the error correction so it looks like a normal shot. So you're seeing wider angle cameras. We now have 3 released products that are using that form factor of a speaker bar. Speaker array, mic array, built-in camera. Is it good? Is it bad? It depends on a lot of things. That's now something that you're going to see more and more of, obviously, with the 3 products that are out there. Can anybody name all 3? Who are the manufacturers? Come on, you guys are smart. AMX did one. Logitech just released theirs. Who's the other one? Yamaha. Yamaha's the 3rd. Then you have organizations, manufacturers that are releasing products that have nothing to do with video conferencing. They want the hub. Hope mentioned, the Crestron Mercury. You have, the HP Slice PC that I'm showing. There are a lot of things. They don't even care about video conferencing in the room. They just want to be the hub of the room, and they want to control that spot. And then we have these smaller full systems that do everything, that are very powerful, that are very easy to use, but they're more expensive, and they often require you to have some type of infrastructure or some type of cloud service to work, so they're not as inexpensive. And then we've got, how many people have read my blog on Soda Cracker video conferencing? Anyone? Wow, all new people. Go to LinkedIn and look me up and look up Soda Cracker video conferencing. I called it that because most of these systems just look like they're a box of crackers with a soda can on top of them, with the concept that if you put a webcam on top of a display, it's now suddenly video conferencing. And there's kind of a problem with that. What the marketing suggests is the picture on the left, and what you get is the picture on the right. And if you can't see if the people are awake or asleep or smiling or dead, what's the point of having video conferencing? Just because you can see a color video image, there's no point to even deploying it. And I'm holding my arm up to show you, this is the industry technical measurement tool for webcams in conference rooms. It's my arm. If you can sit in a huddle room and conceivably touch, you might have to bend and stretch or reach or whatever, but if you can conceivably touch the camera, then it's a perfectly good application of our webcam. And if you can't conceivably touch the camera, then it's stupid. then you need a camera that can either zoom or crop or do something to create the ability to see what somebody's face is. Otherwise, what's the point of having a video conference? Now we are seeing, as I suggested, a new trend in video cameras. This is emerging. This is something you're going to see a lot more manufacturers with probably by the end of the year, that the cameras are ultra high resolution, shooting very wide planes of video. In some cases, they're stitched together, so multiple imaging processors. In some cases, it's one single huge processor. And when somebody in the room talks, through facial recognition and in some cases voice recognition and in some cases both, it crops and creates a shot. What you're looking at are images from the Cisco. They call this new system, it's the new codec, the Spark Room Kit, but they only call it Spark Room Kit because they want you to sign up for their Spark platform. It's really just their new codec. It has the ability to see there's only 2 people in the room, and it crops the shot and covers the 2 people. No mechanical zooming, no panning, no nothing anybody has to touch. Now suddenly you've taken a static camera in a huddle room, and you've made it produce a really good quality image for video conferencing. There's another company, the only other ones that are doing it right now is a company called Altia Systems with their product Panacast, the Panacast 2. Panacast 2 is a stitching camera, 180-degree stitching. Built into the camera is a chip and programming that recognizes, hey, there's 2 people in the room, let me get a 2-shot. Or there's 4 people in the room, let me get a 4-shot. And that camera terminates in a USB 3 connection. Use it with whatever you like. Use it with WebEx, use it with consumer Skype, use it with Skype for Business, use it with Zoom. But you put that in, you never need to have a control in the room anymore to crop the cameras. More and more cameras will do that. We're in the era, probably within about 18 to 24 months, PTZ cameras will go away. We'll do it all electronically. And anybody who's got a huddle room camera system for video conferencing that isn't automatically tracking the shots is probably not going to survive very much out there. So here are the takeaways from my presentation. From what I think is going on in the space. Concept of democratization. User experience trumps technologist's idea of what's important. And that's a very big deal. Hardware prices are plummeting. No more margins, no more things to be built into the hardware, no more free services, and a lot of end users that were getting a lot of services for free that they're not going to be getting for free anymore. We're about to start an interactive whiteboard hype storm. I've compared it in some of the things that I've written to what happened with immersive telepresence, where all of a sudden everybody had to have one and everybody has a product in the space, and then after about 3 or 4 years, it'll start to go off to be what I think is normal, which is where you need an interactive board in teaching applications and design applications and engineering applications. You'll get one. Everybody else won't. Nobody else needs it. Scalable room systems. That's really the future. If you're building custom rooms, it's a dying horse. It's a dying breed. Don't look at what's going on in the AV industry when you read about a new merger every day and say, wow, look at how strong the industry is. You're looking at the death. You're looking at firms that are consolidating because they can't survive individually anymore, because they haven't made this pivot, haven't made this change. Huddle rooms are very hot. Look for manageable solutions with huddle rooms. Huddle rooms are not very valuable if you've got 20,000 of them out there, and the only way you know they're broken is somebody picks up a phone and says it doesn't work. So there's value in systems that can give you remote capability, remote management. And you also have to figure out that decision around, does it have a codec? If it doesn't have a codec, am I hooking it up to a Rooms PC? If it's not a Rooms PC, am I letting people bring their own device and hooking up to there? Because all those are factors in how a huddle room works. And then look for that next generation of electronically tracking cameras, because that's the future. Anything that isn't doing that isn't probably going to survive very long. And then questions?
Okay, time for questions, time for comments. I have never seen our group sleep this much. Okay, do we have our little boxes? Questions, anywhere on this side of the room? Comments? No. Questions in here? One over here. He's coming with the cube. Turn around and catch.
Quick question. We work in a larger workspace, a lot of different people speaking. I'm kind of interested in this whole camera cropping thing for VTCs. How do you see that really applying? Most of the rooms are like this, got an amplifier. How would that work to focus on the individual that's speaking?
Well, I told you there are only 2 cameras on the market right now that are doing this, so I'm not ashamed to talk about the brands because there are only 2, and I'm not endorsing them, but just to let you know. The Panacast camera, again, it's a standard USB 3 camera, and it doesn't require audio. It's literally just doing facial tracking. So it knows how many faces are sitting in the room, and it will crop the shot. The Cisco unit is the only codec that's out there that does it. And it's listening to audio in the room, and it doesn't matter if you have voice lift in the room because it's using a separate set of microphones for the audio detection than it is that you'd be using for the voice lift. So you're able to see easily, it's able to see easily who's talking, and it does, if you're familiar with what they call speaker track or what Polycom calls Eagle Eye Director, it does those features switching, cutting across a big plane with a static camera. Again, that's now the high bar. We'll talk with InfoComm in Las Vegas next year, which is actually really early, right? So it's the first week of June next year. And we'll be talking about other manufacturers that have it out as well as some really cool third-party products that I've seen that are not released yet, that are going to do some very interesting stitching around tracking who's talking in a room around the table.
Okay, I don't know where the Red Cube, over there. You're up.
Yeah, the market has been talking about unified communication for years now, and it's always been an issue that, phone telephony versus the video conferencing versus any type of web conferencing has always been kind of a separate kind of systems concept of how do you communicate. Where do you see that all coming, and where do you see that the blend is finally coming together to be kind of a one standard platform?
Yeah, it's a great question. What we've got right now is an interesting state where I've worked with clients to make unified communication actually work, even amongst users using different platforms. There are now enough tools out there to take an organization that, for example, again, not endorsing in any way, an organization that's all Microsoft and having their unified communication strategy work perfectly, and an organization that's all Cisco and having their strategy work perfectly, and then an organization, and many of them are, Microsoft at the desktop, because that's default and it's easier, Skype for Business and their instant messaging, and Cisco and VoIP and infrastructure in the rooms, and having that all work together. Whether you're using, the former Arcano platform, which is now Cisco CMS, whether you're using a cloud provider, whether you're using a couple of other cloud possible services that are out there, I've seen that work. So we're at a state right now where finally, after 19 years by my count, unified communication is here. It does a really good job. The problem is we're now at the birth of this whole concept of team chat applications, which my colleague Erwin will be getting into in 2 speakers from now probably, right? Or next speaker, you're right after me?
Yep.
And we'll be talking about team chat. And what team chat does is it takes the concept of interoperability and it drops a nuclear bomb on it. Now, the Cisco Spark application will work with anybody. You don't need to be federated, but it can't work with anybody else's team chat. Microsoft's team chat was supposed to release last week, the capability. Well, I'll let her get into that. Now they don't talk with anybody else again. So you can't do team chat. So if we gauge it based on the scale that existed prior to now, we've achieved nirvana, and it is possible. You just have to do it right. Now with team chat, we're starting from scratch again.
Guy with the blue cube.
Blue cube.
So I found your comments about cloud platforms interesting. In your opinion, who has the advantage today?
Wow, great question. I still see it as a mud wrestling campaign between 5 or 6 players with nobody coming out really well. There are a lot of players that are fighting in that space right now. There's, for a collaboration standpoint only, not talking about, cloud compute and AWS or Rackspace or anybody like that. Although Amazon's moved into the space in theory with their own product. But, you have Microsoft and Cisco and Google that are clearly the 3 large players that want to be in this space, that are providing some excellent products. You have third-party players that are not silly, not to be, reckoned. Blue Jeans was the first, and they have a really reliable, stable, excellent platform. You've got the new player Zoom that's out there that's making a heck of a lot of progress. It's very inexpensive. In fact, you can use Zoom for free. You can't get all their features for free, but it's that freemium product that's disrupted the market. So between those players, and then you can start looking at some of the managed service providers, a couple of the names that I had up there, I don't think there's a clear winner there. What we have to do if we're going to be, provide a consultative engagement to our end users is we have to find out what's the business need, what's the objective, what are the pain points. Take that as one piece of information. Then compare that to what an organization already owns. I'd rather not go to the client that I just visited last week who's completely embedded with Cisco Jabber and tell them, oh, you know what, I think Skype for Business is a better platform than Cisco Jabber, so rip out all your licensing and throw away all the investment that you made, because I think that's a waste of time, because Jabber's good. It just might not be as good as another one. So you have to compare those two things based on what the business outcomes are, what the needs are. And it's a little bit off subject, but what I typically do is I do a user segmentation plan to figure out what the personas are at each organization. And then when you know who the 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 types of users are, you know, team users, executive users, salespeople, whatever, it's a lot easier to figure out what the tools are that will help them the most.
Okay, I have another one back here. The red cube is back here somewhere.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have a question about those immersive rooms that were hundreds of thousands of dollars. Are they really just can be jumped now and you go to the low end rooms? That big investment is really just hardware? Or is there a migration path that really utilizes that investment?
The short answer to your question is yes, but I'm not going to be silly. We've actually been hired by clients to pay us to rip out the immersive rooms. The mistake that was made in the industry, and again, if you go to my website, you can take a look at the article I wrote about this in 2006. We were talking about how none of the cars worked because the tires were in bad shape and the engine was bad shape and needed an oil change. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you the best car in the world. We're going to give you a Lexus. And we're going to make sure the engine works and the tires work and the oil is correct. But we're not going to put a steering wheel on it. We're only going to let you go 4 destinations. So if you're going to one of those 4 destinations, you're going in a Lexus. It's cool. It's really nice. But what if your CEO wants to join the conference and he's on a boat? Do you tell him no? Because you're not using an immersive system, so I'm not getting the experience, so go screw off, we don't want to hear from you? Or do you say, it's the CEO, the content is more important than the capability? And ultimately, that's the direction the industry went in. That was a bubble. There are still users of immersive systems today who are the ones who should have been sold immersive systems initially. The people that have 2 or 3 or 4 offices that are always constantly in calls, like a New York law firm that's got an LA office, that are constantly in conversations. Man, that's the perfect use case for an immersive system, and they should still be using them. And there are still some good ones that are out on the market, but they're a lot less expensive. They're now industry standards compatible, so you can use them with the other devices, and they control much more simply. So that was a hype cycle that, you know, thank you all very much who participated in it. You know, a lot of good friends of mine made a lot of money while sitting at home just watching the dollars roll in, but that hype cycle is gone, and you're about to start one now with the interactive whiteboards. Because all the manufacturers are talking to you about the interactive whiteboards and how great they are when you don't really need them. They're a car without a steering wheel. If you've got a lecturer that's standing all day in front of a room and uses it every day so they don't forget how to use it, and it's easy to use, that's great, that's the perfect application. Or 3 engineers in 3 different locations that are working on a simultaneous design and want to use the inking capabilities and keep the drawings going. Brilliant, perfect. But for everybody else, we don't get up. We sit at the table, we open our device, we take out our phone, we stay there, we're using the software. We don't need a $5, $10, $15, $20, $50,000 device to stand up in front of the room and use when nobody stands up in front of the room. We're going through that hype cycle right now. We got another 18 months. Tell your clients, you want to try it? I'll get you 1. I'll come back to you in a month. Tell me how you've used it. If you need 20 more, I'll be happy to sell you 20 more. Very, very unique use cases. So yeah, they're all mostly junk at this point, unless you're buying one of the newer systems.
I saw the next cube over here.
Yeah, you answered part of my question with your response there, but I was going to ask you, do you see open floor plan spaces as well as huddle rooms being in any sort of a cyclical work environment where that will change in 3-5 years?
Good question. There's a lot of debate about open floor plans right now. And there's usually, unfortunately, we're kind of the poster child for debate in the collaboration space. Going even to what you see IBM doing right now. IBM has gotten on the gravy train of scapegoating remote workers, saying, you know, we haven't had a profitable quarter for 14, consecutive quarters, but hey, it's the guys that are working from home that are killing us. So anyway, the open spaces work well if they're managed correctly. If everybody has somewhere to go to do their work. You know, Google's the poster child. If you've ever been to one of their offices, if you haven't, find somebody who works for Google and go into one of their offices. Because if people want to have private time, they've got a place to go for private time. And if they want to have a call, they have a call. There are a lot of architects out there, and the architects are generally the enemy of the AV industry. I don't know how many of you agree with that, but you know, they're generally the enemy of the
See the
AV
hands
industry.
popping up.
Because, you know, whatever. I'll tell you guys private stories later if you'd like. But they believe that they can take an 8-person table and put it here and put a speakerphone on it. And then take an 8-person table and put it here and put a speakerphone on it and call it an open space. And it's like, these people can't work in that kind of environment. The phones will interfere with each other. They'll have their own phone call. So there's a lot of bad plans. And also the concept of open space environmental treatment is exploding. You're going to see one of the major manufacturers in the UC and audio industry coming out with a brand new concept, coming to market, I would say probably within 6 to 8 months, of the ability of treating open spaces visually, auditorily, where it's not as crazy as an environment, where it's, even though there are hundreds of people in an open space, everybody can have a conversation. And it's going to take sound masking to the next level where it's needed to go for a long time. So I think there's a place for it if it's done right. If it's thrown in just for the sake of calling it an open space, I've seen that done very poorly, and you have to be careful of it.
Okay, who's got the cube? I've lost count. Oh, in the back, okay.
Thank you. Dave, do you see people tracking as an application emerging in any of these platforms yet? And if so, how?
I'm starting to. I'd be lying to you if I said I know a client that's using it. But the same software that was in that Cisco SpeakerTrack automatic camera that I showed, not SpeakerTrack, the Spark Room system, is doing facial detection. So if you've registered the face, it knows who the person is, and it's telling you how many people are in the room. And that data will at some point be published and available. Turn the mic back on, please.
We're not seeing people tracked like assets in the organization. In other words, where's Joe? Oh, Joe's in that conference room. Let's make Joe's stuff available there. You're not seeing anything like that, right?
I have not seen anything like that, no. I've seen people being tracked throughout an organization through RFID, and I've seen voice recognition. So the idea is if I walk into a conference room and I speak to the device and I say, you know, device, please start my meeting, it should know my voice. And it should know what my meeting is because it knows my calendar. And if not, I've got my smart device with a Bluetooth beacon on, so it knows who I am based on that, and it can bring my my meeting information up and start my meeting for me because it has all that information. I'm not seeing anything more universal than that yet, other than in the movies. But it's coming.
Have any more questions? You're very quiet over here. Okay, then I want to say thank you very much to David.